come to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Erby? Here. Councilmember Pay?
Here.
Councilmember Wassinger?
Here.
Councilmember O'Mara? Councilmember Dolan?
Here.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Here.
Councilmember Harder? Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval of the journal?
So moved.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The journal is approved. We have no bid openings this evening, so we will move to communications.
Mr. Chair, there are no tax compromises this evening, so we'll move to zoning matters. Under zoning matters, item number 1, 6th District.
Please draft from the order of business.
So ordered.
Item number 2, 6th District.
Receive and file.
So ordered.
Item number 3, 6th District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation.
So ordered.
Moving on to road and bridge matters, Mr. Chair, item number 1, 6th District.
Receive, file, and the street be accepted for maintenance as requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Moving on to other communications, Mr. Chair, item number 1.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation, and that will be the order.
Item number 2, all districts.
Receive and file and refer to the St. Louis County Auditor, and that will be the order.
Item number 3, 7th District.
Receive, file, and refer to the Planning Commission for consideration.
So ordered.
Item number 4.
Receive and file, and that will be the order.
Item number 5.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation. Same motion through item number 10, and that will be the order.
Item number 11, 1st District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation.
So ordered.
Item number 12, 3rd District.
Same motion.
So ordered.
Item number 13, 6th District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation.
So ordered.
Item number 14, 1st District.
Same motion.
So ordered.
Item number 15, 4th District.
Same motion and so ordered, and that's the order.
Item number 16, 6th District.
Same motion.
Want that
And item number 17, 6th
for
District.
17?
Oh, I'm
Well,
sorry. For 17 also, correct.
so ordered. Report of the county executive.
Nothing this evening.
So we will, there's no reports of special committees this evening, so we will move to public forum.
23 speakers this evening, Mr. Chair.
23 speakers. If you would please keep your comments to 3 minutes, please, and when you address the council, if you would state your name and address. I might just, if it matters to some, I'm sure, tell you ahead of time that Councilman O'Mara is not here this evening and was working on some language changes or modifications with his residency bill, so that will be held tonight. So there is no vote on that tonight, just so I'm sure, and there, word was put out as best we could beforehand, so you all know that ahead of time. So, first speaker, please.
Amy Peterson.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. My name is Amy Peterson. My address is 7245 Stanley Avenue in Maplewood. I've seen similar ordinances to the ordinance under consideration that you just mentioned, used 3 times, every time against women who are the victims of domestic violence. I'm going to tell you a story about Rachel. Rachel has a physical disability and a kindergarten-aged daughter. Rachel got into a relationship with a man who was abusive to her. She called the police 2 times, and then she got up the strength to kick him out of the house in February. In November, she felt differently, and she let him back into the house. He convinced her that he had changed. Rachel called me in the evening because she had locked herself in the back room with her kindergarten-aged daughter, and he was throwing plates at her head. I called the police, and they took him away, and he never came back to that house. Rachel was then given a nuisance ordinance and told that she must leave her house, in which case her daughter would have lost her place in the school district, and her house would have, her entire life would have gone into upheaval. I think that it's shameful, quite honestly, to be considering a bill that can put women who are in the most vulnerable position in their life in this kind of risk. Women who have done nothing wrong except exist in proximity to controlling and abusive men. We should be protecting women who are the victims of domestic violence, but often ordinances like this are used to re-victimize them. As I said, this is not a hypothetical situation. I have seen this happen to women in this county, in municipalities that have similar ordinances. I repeat, I think that it is shameful. I am ashamed to be living in a place that will treat women who are the victims of domestic violence, who have disabilities, who have children in this way, instead of protecting them, sending them out into the street and putting them at great risk of homelessness and of trafficking and of being the victims of domestic violence in the future. I urge you to reject this bill and to consider the effect that it will have on women and children. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jean Hutchins.
Thank you. As I stated before, there are some considerations and some changes in this bill, and, so some of these comments, might not even merit consideration because they will be addressed, so just keep that in mind if the bill is being held.
My name is Gene Hutchins, live at 9447 Radio Drive in Afton. I'm speaking about the bill that's been taken off, but still it's important. About 6 or 7 months from now, if this were to pass, I would be in violation of that because my son is going to be moving back to St. Louis after serving 8 years in the Army and finishing college. He intends to come back to the St. Louis area, and he's going to live with mom and dad till he gets settled. Now, he was raised in that house, and you're telling him he can't come back to it as an adult because he's of your ordinance. This ordinance is the one that you're going to say I can't have my family member in the house. You want me to go get a license to have a family member in my house. That's, I think it's stupid. Thank you.
Okay.
Brian Wirtz.
No.
Hi, Brian Wirtz. Thanks for letting me speak. To your point, that it's being revised, it's in final passage, so I don't know how we get a time to speak without being when the bill's presented. So it may be put out on Tuesday night or Tuesday morning, and we gotta try and figure out what you've got in there. So it needs to be moved back to a committee or to preliminary is what I would recommend. But, so I'll start off with Brian Wirtz, Bethalto, Illinois. I got 10 properties in North County. And after last week's listening to everything, I'm trying to figure out what's the intent of the bill. And so you're going after landlords, you're going after tenants. And as I drive around Glasgow Village, which is a big part of this bill, and I look at the properties, the ones that I'm seeing that are the biggest blight on the community, I looked up on your guys' website. So I look at it, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, will this address those houses that have tree branches on the roof, tall grass, boarded up, raccoons living in them, which happens to be one of the properties right next to him. He's got animals that are living in it, tall grass. It's a blight on the whole community. Looked up who owned them. They're individual owners that have abandoned the properties years ago. You haven't received taxes on them since 2010, and they're just sitting there. Now, if I look at, does this bill address it? I walked through, said, okay, do they have more properties in St. Louis County? No. Can you find them? No. And so there's nobody living in there, so they're not gonna come and get an occupancy permit. They're not gonna come and get a landowner's, or a permit to be able to rent to somebody. So you completely missed the mark on the houses that you're trying to fix up and figure out who owns and get them back on your tax roll and make them an asset to the community. So I urge you to vote down 204 when it comes up, if it's in the same form that it is today, and really look at what are the houses you're trying to address. I think you want to address the ones that you're about ready to bulldoze in because they've fallen in disrepair. They've got no copper, they got no air conditioning, half the walls are out, some of them have natural skylights with holes in the roof. Those are the ones that you're about ready to bulldoze down, which is gonna make the property now have a tax bill of $40,000 versus the current 20 that's still above market rate for a decent house that you can walk in and still fix up. So let's work together to figure out a way to address the real problem here, not, well, those are gonna be too tough to deal with, so let's tack these people over here, put people homeless, trying to imprison me for not evicting my tenants, which is then gonna put me and my wife and 3 kids out of my other employment that I have because they don't wanna have somebody employed that's been jailed. Then my houses are gonna go into disrepair.
That's 3 minutes, Mr.
So,
Chair.
thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Marley?
My name is Chuck Marley. I live in Baldwin, and I own rental property in Afton. Mr. Speaker here keeps reminding us this bill won't be voted on tonight because of Councilman O'Leary's absence, Amira's absence. And we are well aware how he's going to vote. It's your other minds we're trying to change here. That's why we're here tonight. I'm opposed to the proposition for the licensing of landlords. And there's an occupancy permit system in place that already serves a purpose. I don't think of keeping substandard housing out of the rental pool. Licensing would only add one more burden to small enterprises such as mine, and it would add costs to the business side, requiring me to raise rents in an area of people that are already struggling to make ends meet. Everyone knows small business is the backbone of the economy. Every city and county is trying to attract more business. Why keep adding more hurdles to those already taxed businesses? Your goal should be to make it easier for businesses to operate. Thank you.
Clifford Underwood?
Clifford Underwood, 9342 Hazel Ridge Drive. First of all, I'd like to direct your attention to the Suncrest call this week, and our Chief Executive Stigner, I applaud you for your endorsement and unconditional support of what we used to call the map and chart. They've gone uptown now. They're called the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And your support, as a matter of fact, you're aware of the fact that there's a hearing going on right now at the Crestwood Community Center. The NGA is there getting the input concerning the 2 county possibilities. But I applaud your support. Certainly the city needs the taxes, and the state can sure use the income tax as well. On another issue, the substitute bill for 211, as I understand it, it is being considered tonight for final passage that the Meelan LLC property and Circle K, the bill will be addressing They are expanding their square footage for the building. There will be no car wash, and their hours will be 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. Is that the context or content of that particular bill?
Of the sub-bill?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
With that, that allows Mealand LLC and Circle K to meet their pledge of wanting to be good neighbors, and I applaud them for doing that. Thank you.
Abir Moten?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abir Motin, and I am homeless, and I'm representing the homeless, and I'm the founder of Global Bridge to the Future Fusion for Life Foundation. First of all, I want to start out to tell everyone that to pay attention to the homeless. You know, God's holy books say that we're people. We're not guinea pigs to be tested. We're not guinea pigs to be neglected. We're not supposed to be going through trials and tribulation, which we are. And I'm 44 years old. There's kids who are babies. There are people who are adults. There are people who are abled. There are people who are disabled. There are people who are mute, blind, and on and on. My point to tell you is we need a 24-hour shelter where people can stay there up until they move into a housing. And this shelter that I plan to have will help secure people and help lead people to success. It will not allow anybody to do any illegal investigation, no entrapment, no bullying, no intentional conflicts, no discrimination, no humiliation. It's going to be an international house of love. It's going to have all kinds of people from all kinds of nationalities, and they'll accept anybody from any state. We need that here in St. Louis. This is supposed to be a show-me state. We will hopefully be able to have a convention center here in St. Louis County where we can have bands, we can have plays, we can have conference halls, workshops, and we can have the homeless employed in the shelter, and we can have the benefits paying the homeless and the shelter, and then also to help for housing projects for the homeless and business projects. We have to think for the positive ways. Please don't allow anybody to try to halt me or try to be in my way to put me through more trials and tribulation. I've been going through a lot of tribulation and trials from people who are involved in corruption, racketeering and retaliating against me, and I don't want that. I know that human life counts. I appreciate every human life, and, I've seen people cry. I've seen people die. I've seen people who suffered. I've seen people humiliated. I'm a woman, and we are trafficked. Along the process of homelessness, we're set up to be sold. It's like politicians get involved, get her, try to get her pregnant, try to rape her. They do it to a lot of women. We should keep women secure. We should keep everybody secure. We should keep faith. Faith comes first. Human life comes first. We should never forget all the human lives that count out there. If people forget all the homeless or any homeless, then they don't believe in God. So this shelter is going to be a shelter for all faiths, but also it's going to be for Muslims too. It'll have the first the first mosque to be involved in homeless services. Thank you very much. Take care and God bless you.
Thank you.
Zachary Smoke?
Good evening. I'm Zachary Smoke with the Metropolitan St. Louis Equal Housing and Opportunity Council. I also live in the county at 8311 Fullerton Avenue. I can appreciate that the substitute bill for 204 is no longer on for final passage today, but we're here to ask again that members of the community, representatives of tenants, representatives of landlords, domestic violence advocates, disability advocates, have a part in creating whatever bill is going to be voted on. I was here last year in May when Councilman O'Mara proposed a similar bill in 2015. And we said at that point, we understand that there are some legitimate concerns here. We think this bill is not the way to approach that. And the next I heard of it was when the bill was for final passage last week. And that's not going to work because it doesn't address the real needs of the community here. When I see people, what strikes me about this bill is the unity of tenants, of landlords, pretty much everybody who's involved in the rental property. There's a consensus here that we don't see that this is a bad idea. So I think that should indicate that maybe we should look at this again and see some ideas about how to move forward. From a personal standpoint, I've seen nuisance bills used in Illinois, used in municipalities in St. Louis County that have nuisance ordinances, and the people get trapped in that tend to be people who are victims of domestic violence, people with disabilities. I've seen people's suicide attempts classified as a nuisance. And the city in that case tells them, you need to go because you're a nuisance because you have a disability. Or you're a nuisance because your child has autism or a developmental disability that cannot control the volume of their voice. And there's nothing in this bill that prohibits that kind of use of these nuisance ordinances. And it happens. I've seen it happen in other places that do it. So we need to have some sort of clear carve-out for domestic violence and for people with disabilities. Overall, I think the key problem with this bill is that it tries to approach a one-size-fits-all approach to all of these properties. Tenants and landlords are in that position. They deal with each other on a daily basis. Tenants can make reasonable accommodations for disabilities. And the person who makes that fact-dependent analysis is the landlord and the tenant, and not a county-wide one-size-fits-all. So I applaud you for taking the opportunity to revisit this ordinance and make these amendments, but I would encourage you to make sure that the community is part of that process and can tell you how to address your legitimate concerns without these draconian impacts that the current bill has. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Susan Alverson? Mr. Chair, so that people know who's next, I'll go ahead and let people know that the next speaker is Kumar Docket.
Good evening. My name is Susan Alverson. I'm an attorney at Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. I'm also a St. Louis County resident. I live at 7749 Stanford. I am also here to speak about this 204 ordinance. For 30 years, I've represented low-income, elderly, and handicapped persons. My clients are tenants. I was here last week, and I got to hear many people speak against this ordinance. And again, like Zach said, I understand that this is being changed, but we really need to have an input here from tenants and landlords. And I'm speaking for the tenants. You heard a lot from the landlords, and I absolutely concur with what they said. And one thing is, I have been representing tenants, like I said, for 30 years. I've never seen these landlords in court. What does this tell me? They're good landlords. I have, however, seen slum landlords, and this is a concern that you all should have. The absentee landlords, the big conglomerates, the landlords from New Jersey or California that don't care about St. Louis County. They're in here to make a fast buck. They buy a property. They're going to rent the premises to a desperate tenant. They're interested in the security deposits. In St. Louis County, in Missouri, a security deposit can be 2 times the amount of the contract rent. It's a lot of money for a client to come up with like $1,500, which is like a 2 months rent, let's say it's $750 a month. She pays everything down, and I say she because most of my clients are African American women. Those are the people I represent. She spends $1,500 to put down for security deposit, and that's all that slum landlord cares about. He doesn't care about repairing the property, and as soon as he can, he's going to go ahead and evict her. That's who this ordinance is going to help. Not the good landlords that you've heard from, not my clients, the tenants, but the folks that come in here that really don't care about us. Right now, there's a focus on St. Louis County because of Ferguson. How can there not be? It's a nationwide focus. Let's have a law that benefits the community. And right now, We have plenty of laws. Let's enforce them. Let's not make the landlords the policemen. Please, let's not do that. Let's not force a landlord to have to evict his good tenant that he wants to keep in there because she decides that she's going to let her son, who happens to have a criminal record, stay with her for a while. Let's not do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kumar Docket, and after Kumar will be Theresa Douglas.
How y'all doing tonight? My name is Kumar Docket. I live at 6844 Crest Avenue in the University City area. And I grew up out in St. Louis County, and I love St. Louis County. But I see that this bill will frustrate many residents, especially minority residents that live in St. Louis County. This bill, I believe, not only should it be changed, but it should be thrown out. I don't even think that there should even be a chance to even vote on this bill because it's many loopholes in this bill that's going to frustrate many people that's already struggling. As far as misdemeanors, okay, I can see maybe having a bill that's targeting people that have felonies, but misdemeanors, I mean, anybody can receive a misdemeanor and then be out on the street. We living in times where many families, from middle class on down, are struggling, and we don't want to frustrate that by coming up with bills and legislation that's going to further, frustrate people, especially for those that are living in the St. Louis County. We want to do things that's going to have people move in, not move out of our beloved resident here in St. Louis County. So I just want to encourage the St. Louis Council to think about not even voting on this bill, but literally throwing it out, and also be prayerful on the decisions that you make. Because we want to make sure that we're opening up the door and we're accommodating each and every resident that's represented in the St. Louis County, white, black, Mexican, or whoever. So I just want to encourage the St. Louis County to be prayerful on this bill because I believe that it's going to frustrate many residents.
Theresa Douglas, followed by Kathy Armbruster.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Theresa Douglas. I'm a committee woman in Lemay Township. My address is 8208 Weimar. And I was here speaking last year when we had the similar bill that came up. Back then it was substitute bill number 1 for bill number 73. At that same time, we also had substitute bill number 1 for bill number 72, which that one indeed did pass at the time, and that's the one that allowed the situation that Rachel discussed earlier about the nuisance laws to go into effect. At the time, the bill number 72, the substitute bill number 1 for bill number 73 was placed on hold. That's the one that we're again revisiting at the present time as bill number 204. We were told at the time, so many people spoke out against it, that it would be revised and revamped and it was going to come back. And when I saw the bill as it's presented to us today, I realized it really, for the year's time frame, I would have thought there would have been some major revisions to it. And unfortunately, from reading it, the two major revisions that I see are it no longer says that it will be illegal to assist anyone, and they've changed it from applying for an exemption to have your children with you to applying for or to making a declaration to allow your children to live with you. Either way, we have to apply to the county to get permission to have our children and our family members live with us so that we can be exempt from this bill. Part of the problem is this does not specify, most citizens think that rental property is property that you receive funds for. There is nothing in this that says that funds have to be transferred. So this applies to every resident in the county. When you look at it, the definition of residential rental property is dwellings, including one-family dwellings, duplex dwellings, multifamily dwellings. The people it does not address are university-owned dwellings, multifamily, like large apartment complexes and hotels. So it doesn't address the situations where you have the real problem, and it makes your average citizen, puts us into a position where we're subject to $1,000 a day fines and/or imprisonment for up to a year for each day that we're in violation.
Thank you.
I mean, okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you very much.
Next speaker is Kathy Armbruster. Kathy Armbruster, followed by Larry Rice.
County Councilor,
Yes.
could you address the issue of, to the best of my understanding is you can have your family live in your residence. I don't know where that's coming.
I don't know where that is not part of the bill, and it's, no reasonable interpretation could lead to the conclusion that the county is attempting to regulate what family members reside in the family home.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Armbruster. I live at 214 West Holden in Lemay, and I appreciate the time that you're allowing me to speak on this Bill 204. This bill is just taking the landlords and individuals' rights away by putting a burden and hardship on all of them. And when you look at it, it's going to cost the landlord or the individuals more money. And if we're talking landlords, okay, you got to cost the landlord more money, then that amount will be passed on to the renters. And if the renters cannot afford a higher rent bill, then what happens? They get evicted, and then from there, they're out on the street. And then from there, you're going to have more homeless people. And we don't need more homeless people. We got enough of them already. So I just hope that you vote this bill down. And to make it short, I just want to say they can shove this bill to where the sun don't shine. Thank you.
Mr. Rice will be followed by Tony Pusosa.
Thank you for this opportunity. On numerous occasions during the past 3 years, we've had individuals from St. Louis County that have come before the board here pleading for a walk-in emergency shelter. Instead of receiving such, though, they've given a bill like this. St. Louis County has become noted around the world, its many municipalities, for its increased municipal charges that have been incurred upon its residents, and now a bill that would require landlords to evict individuals who have misdemeanor charges, or even those that had a felony record serve their time and now have to have some place to go, some place to live, an opportunity for a second chance. A public nuisance that once who actually died because he was such a nuisance said that, as oft you've done to the least of these, even so you've done it to me. And fox have holes and birds have nests, but he, the Son of Man, had nowhere to lay his head. It's very biblical. The Pope has just visited us. He's just left. And then this week we have this bill before St. Louis County. I know that there's 4 of you that indicated an interest in perhaps voting for it. I would plead with each one of you to please reconsider and take a strong look at it, where it turns not only landlords who are trying to engage in affordable housing into being potential criminals if they don't evict someone who's suspected or even receives a misdemeanor charge, which is quite easy to get in North St. Louis County. Thus, they become homeless. And again, without any walk-in shelter in St. Louis County, they continue to be dumped by many municipalities east of Skinker Boulevard. Many gravitate to the last major walk-in shelter in the greater St. Louis area, the 1411 Locust facility, which has created quite a few problems for us down there because rightfully so, many people in the city of St. Louis say, well, why do you take care of these people from St. Louis County? Because they literally have nowhere else to go. And now there's going to be even more of them if this bill happens to pass. That's why I see something very unique that's been transpiring here the past few weeks. And the first time I've seen a coalition of landlords get together with homeless people, with tenants. I mean, these are human beings from St. Louis County that have bound together because they see a common evil, an evil that you can prevent by voting no on this particular bill. I ask you to search your conscience. I ask you to pray over this. I ask you to no longer just go and associate your beliefs for an hour on a Sunday morning, but let it be transpired into your regulations as we continue to pray for you, that you'll make a decision that will not cause more harm to women, children, the elderly, the poor. There may be someone in a family that may be a nuisance and need to be dealt with, but yet to have the whole family put out, or to have a landlord lose his license because he's trying to just give people a second chance, in and of itself is criminal. Again, we have strong biblical commands to provide for the homeless. We see the homeless Jesus. We've been told to entertain angels unaware, and to have people put back out on the streets without any walk-in shelter in the city, in the county, St. Louis County, is bad, and particularly legislation is going to cause more people to do that. Please vote no.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Tony Pusosa, and Mr. Pusosa will be followed by Lisa Panetta.
Good evening, Executive Stanger and council members. My name's Tony Pizzosa. I live at 9700 Antigo Drive, City of Green Park in South County. And I'm here this evening, even though it's not on the agenda, to oppose and speak out against the final passage of Substitute Bill number 1 and Bill 204 regarding rental property and licensing code in unincorporated St. Louis County. It's obvious that final passage of this bill would be a revenue-generating scheme for St. Louis County. The language makes it almost impossible not to be in some form of violation. Final passage of this bill punishes the working poor and takes away property rights from owners. Councilpersons who vote in favor of this must have some sort of arrogant contempt for the poor, the elderly, and those that enjoy their property rights. As I have stated in past arguments, there are more efficient ways of dealing with rental properties without punishing the working poor and property owners. It's called enforcing the ordinances we already have. If we want to truly build a successful community, and we need a lot of help after what's happened in Ferguson, this is not the step or the direction to go. It's a step backwards, and it will not bring people to St. Louis County. They will leave, and then you will lose your tax base, and then what will you do? Come for more taxes. If you, the council, vote yes on this, I guess we'll have to look no further than the Missouri Ethics Report to see how and who benefits from such passage. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lisa Panetta, and Ms. Panetta will be followed by Alan Lindebrand.
Hi, I'm Lisa Panetta, and I live in St. Louis County. Hopefully, I can clarify why this bill is before us, that I don't think anybody's really talking about the truth behind the bill. It's the hotels. The hotels want this bill because they don't like the Airbnbs that are coming in. And just like Uber, they didn't like the competition of Uber, the taxi commission didn't. And this is about Airbnb. And I'd say, get with the times, people. You don't like it, too bad. It's called competition. And if you're scared of a little competition from residential homeowners, then you better get a new plan, a new business plan. So that's the reality behind this. So now that I've addressed the reality, why don't you, if I could get the council to address for me some of the legal questions, because I called earlier today and did not receive any clarification on legal questions that I had. Your bill states about the residential rental property, that it's only to be occupied by persons offered for rent, lease, or occupancy to any person. So what this says is that no money needs changed hands. So when we talk about rental properties, there's a presumption here that money is actually being made and money is changing hands, except for that isn't what you're stating here. So you're making a regular homeowner now a criminal. The second question that I had is that there's nothing here that addresses the duration period. So if you're telling me I'm having a kid sleepover, which I do on a regular basis, and they're not family members, and they're sleeping over one night, this bill has no duration period in there that says that I'm violating this ordinance within 1 day, 30 days, 6 months, a year. So do I have to then come and receive a permit to have a kid sleepover at my home, or I'm in violation? And then we talk about the absolutely absurd penalties that are related to this ordinances. That $1,000, and it goes into each day in which a person or entity allows occupancy of residential rental property in violation, again, rental property not needing money to change hands, okay, of any provision shall constitute a separate violation. And you're talking about a year imprisonment for this. So if I had, what does this mean by each separate violation? If I have 5 kids at my sleepover, then I can be in prison for up to 5 years? I mean, and again, I already called the council today and received no clarification. So when you talk about bills and you basically brought up the same bill that you brought up last year and tabled, it's because you're trying to sneak it in, and it's because it's before the hotel's interest, not the communities. This hurts the poor, it hurts the residents, it trumps on our rights. Thank you.
Be followed by Don Eaton.
Hi, my name is Alan Lederbrand. I live at 3918 Jacinto Drive in St. Louis County. I'd like to first talk about why, or try to get an understanding why this board hates children and firefighters. Because you've got a resolution that's going to take money away from kids and firefighters and give it to, as corporate welfare, to a business owner. I just think it's wrong. If the business idea is a sound one, the business person can pay for it himself instead of using my tax dollars or the community's tax dollars to fund it. And you're taking it away from the kids. I don't know how many times we hear that school districts are hurting for money and you're going to take money away from them. I think you should vote no or just throw this whole resolution out. TIFs are bad. Second, same thing on the bill 204. I'm glad that it's being reworked because it's incomplete, and I don't know why. Is this going to be like Obamacare? You got to pass it to find out what's in it. It says referring to section, there's a part on here saying section 820, you have to comply with section 825.150. There's no 150 in this bill. So what do we need to know that's not written here? So I'm glad at least maybe you'll address that issue and put in section 150. Also, what's this going to cost each person, or for the license? And what's this going to cost the county? There's going to be, you got a lot of rental property, and people are going to be coming to the county. How much is this going to cost? Shouldn't there be a fiscal note? What's this actually going to cost the taxpayers? So I think personally, and with the penalties and everything else and the violations, I think it needs to be thrown out again. Repeatedly, we keep throwing this, we come in here, fight, and you keep bringing the same bad bill back year after year. Please, just kill this and leave it dead. Thank you.
Next speaker is Don Eaton, and after Don Eaton will be Jason Risch.
Good evening. It's been a long day. My name is Don Eaton. I manage about 1,600 units. We're one of the larger property manager companies in St. Louis, and as far as I know, we're in pretty good standing with you guys. I've worked on several occasions with Robert Rink, who is an officer for problem properties in North County, and we've worked together to eliminate some tenants that are not desirable tenants. But I think that you guys can see here tonight that there are a lot of open ends on this bill. And what we are asking, or what I am asking, is you guys to reach out and include us in what you're trying to accomplish. I've sent several emails to all the council members, and I bet everybody here has too. I'd like to see if there are any hands of anybody that received anything back. So we're not being included in this. I want to give you just one example of something that happened, and we very rarely have any kind of a challenge with the county. But we have, a license can be pulled for violating an ordinance. We have a property that we manage for one of our clients, and this particular tenant lost their Section 8. And as a result, we tried to reach out to her and find out what was going on. Her father said that he was going to help her. We started getting her back on track. She was current with her payments. An inspector found an envelope with the tenant name and address that she couldn't afford to pay her trash bill. She took her trash and dumped it on a vacant property. They went through the trash, found the address, and then they, instead of going to the tenant and saying anything, they find the owner, who happened to be, we were managing, but they sent it to the owner's address. The owner was in the hospital with cancer, didn't get that. They fined $500 for the fine, and then the next day we received, the property management company received a fine for $600 because the tenant didn't have the trash in her name, or she didn't have trash service. So they fined the owner in both instances. Now, the owner didn't do anything that was illegal, but the owner was the one that was fined in both of those situations. So, we're trying to keep the tenant in-house, and we're trying to do the right things, but we're not being included. We know that there are problems in North County. We want to help. We want to be included. We want you guys to reach out and say, hey, can you guys come and put together some sort of a common committee, and we can come to some sort of common solutions over this instead of just being an ordinance shoved down our throats. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jason Risch, and Mr. Risch will be followed by Jennifer Byrd.
My name is Jason Risch. I live in St. Louis County, Oakville. About 5-6 years ago, I'm a licensed electrical contractor. I diversified and started buying houses in the North County area. I tell you that I'm adamantly opposed to this because every hands-on landlord, and like Donnie just talked, there's a lot more to this story. So people in the bill, I guess, are saying if there's people with convicted felons, I'm not going to be able to rent to them. If I have 2 houses down, I can't rent any of my houses. I mean, this is just complete nonsense. 100% of the people that I rent to are women, African American. All right? Things aren't by the book up there. You can ask any landlord here. If I got my rent every 30 days in the mailbox, I'd be a rich man. All right? We have creative deals with everybody. Sometimes when we go to the house, yeah, there's someone else living there. Their friend from work or somebody because they're helping pay the bills. They didn't pay the trash. Well, I'll pay it because I don't want to get fined from the county. Then I'm going back to them. What it's gonna do is this is gonna discourage people like me for buying those vacant ones you still got sitting there. That's the bottom line.
Next speaker is Jennifer Byrd. Ms. Byrd is followed by Lloyd Allen.
My name is Jennifer Byrd. I'm at 9244 Laurel Hill Drive. I appreciate your taking my comments. I, too, am coming to speak about Substitute 1 for 204. I realize it's not up tonight, but of course we don't get to plan lickety-split in our lives, and we have to fight traffic to get here at 6 o'clock. when most of us work until 5 or a little after, so we have to neglect our family in order to be able to even be heard by the council. So I know I've asked in the past if we could move these meetings to 7 or 7:30, like, PTAs and PTOs and other clubs that actually have an interest in their constituents' opinions. So that would be a nice addition. I don't understand why this has still come up. Again, I was among the people who've already stated that they opposed this last year. There's not a big difference in the way that the bill is worded. It looks to me like an additional tax on landlords, which of course is going to, roll down to the people that rent if this is in fact a case of renting for monies being exchanged. So you're going to be hurting low income, poor, and even maybe people who are trying to struggle to stay in middle class if they're fortunate enough to be there now. So to me, it's just another tax. It's dictating what someone can do with the property that they own. The gentleman before me mentioned people making special deals. I have friends that are property owners that do rent for money, for very low amounts of money, better than what people can get in Section 8, and they make all kinds of special deals. So I think that is going to discourage that from happening. What happens when you have an intact family? Mom, dad, 2 kids. Maybe one child in grade school, the other child in high school, not in a good environment, a victim, so to speak, of their environment, and they get into trouble. Maybe they're selling drugs at school, so the whole family's going to be evicted because one child made a bad decision. I think that's wrong, and I think it's a dangerous path to take. Additionally, we have sections of this bill that aren't even completed being written. I don't understand that. I mean, I've made the comment before, it sounds funny to say, but it's stool sample approach to legislation. You got to pass it to see what's in it. It makes no sense. I mean, would you sign a blank mortgage? Would you sign a blank lease? Would you sign a blank purchasing agreement on a car? Because I'm pretty sure that none of you would. I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't encourage it. So, all the jokes aside, it's really a bad deal, and I think that it's really going down the wrong road, and I think it's ultimately going to hurt the poor and the low income. So I urge you to don't even take it up. I think Jamal or Kamal said, throw it out, throw it out. Lastly, on the TIF money for Afton, I don't understand that. $3.25 million to pick winners and losers in industry. If their business is a business, let them take their own risk. Don't take the money from school children and the fire department. Thank you.
And Mr. Allen will be followed by Joe Ord.
My name is Lloyd Allen. I personally am a resident of St. Charles County, but I'm here this evening representing a group of 180-some small landlords in the St. Louis area that are members of the St. Louis RIA. We have several other members who raise their hand that are here right now, that are in the audience. I'm the vice president of the group, and we'll just speak on some of the points that we don't like about Bill number 205 or 204. First of all, the St. Louis County already has numerous laws or building codes and inspections that are to ensure the safe housing. The proposed legislation is discriminating against the smaller property owners in that it excludes any units that have 5+ units. Landlords are not the police, and as I understand this, we have enough problems, collecting rent, as you've heard from other landlords, and keeping properties maintained to a quality level, let alone having to. I think the police are a better agency to handle the criminal element. The proposed legislation, and all it does is just pass the buck. If we do evict a tenant for reasons that are in the legislation, the tenant will just assume somebody else's identity, change a name, move on down the street to somebody else's property, and just go through another cycle. It's not going to eliminate the issues. And also the legislation is also costly. It's going to be costly for the property owners to comply with it. It's going to be costly to the county to administer an additional bureaucracy, and all that cost is just going to roll down to the lower level, the tenants that pay the rent. It's going to have to come in there, and it's just going to be more of a burden on the lower income people paying the rent. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Joe Ord, followed by Duffy Dunn.
My name is Joseph Ord. I own Amosa Properties. I own 45 properties in St. Louis County, and I manage 56 total properties in unincorporated St. Louis County. In addition to what I said last week, I take issue with the 5+ unit complex exemption in 825.100, item 2. Under the definition of residential rental property, this ordinance creates a double standard and a subclass of citizens, as those who live in an apartment building with 5 or more units now have greater rights than the tenants who live in single-family homes. Further, why should the tenant population be the only one subjected to the threat of losing their home due to a forced move-out if a family member commits a crime? Another issue of concern are the costs associated with this bill. This bill adds a whole new set of responsibilities to an already strained St. Louis County Public Works Department. The only way to properly administer this bill is to create new county government positions, such as the duly appointed designee in 825.100, item 2, new inspectors to handle the increased inspection loads required in 825.400, item 3. Just the basic administrative staff within Public Works will have to increase to handle workloads. With no fees associated with this bill and no additional tax revenue to fund these positions, what's the solution? I was here last week. I heard Mr. O'Mara say that there are no costs in this bill. I contend that Mr. O'Mara and the council have intentionally put the following vague language in 825.300 titled rules so that the Director of Public Works can almost immediately ask the council to approve a license fee structure once this bill has passed. 825.300 reads, "The Director may issue such rules and regulations as the Director deems necessary to implement the provisions of this code and the policies contained herein. Any such rules and regulations shall be filed with the Administrative Director and will be effective upon approval of the County Council." If Mr. O'Mara were here, I would say, this is underhanded, and if you want to continue to say this as a no-cost bill, then this language needs to be removed. This bill is redundant of many other laws and ordinances already in place that need to be better enforced. This bill creates yet another costly infrastructure that has no way to be properly funded. It places way too much undue burden on property owners who are investing money into troubled neighborhoods, and it ultimately creates a second-class citizenship for tenants in single-family homes. This bill is ill-thought and ill-advised and needs to be permanently removed from this council's agenda. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Duffy Dunn. Okay. Then next speaker is Jerry Hopping, followed by Jim Heffernan. Jerry Hopping? Mr. Hopping will be followed by Jim Heffernan.
Sorry, I thought you had to approach you with this. Some handouts for the council. Basically, in the last couple of weeks, actually for the last couple of years, we agree with the problem, we disagree with how to go about it. What you're going to be handed here, I went through a subdivision and I took pictures of the ended up being 26 properties that were the visually most disturbing properties in that subdivision. Then I went back through public records and I looked at who's the owner. Is it on the tax sale list? Is it a problem property? What is the tax address? Is it actually the property address? And son of a gun, if I didn't find that these 26 properties that affect the large number of values in that subdivision, absolutely none of them will be affected by this bill. That's the stuff that you guys want to go after, and that's what we're saying the problem is. But yet, none of those will be affected by this bill. And if you look at them, there's different reasons for each one. They're owned by banks, or they're owned by individuals that abandon the properties. They're not going to apply for licenses. You're not going to get it. The current occupancy application actually asks for contact information. I know the council, Mr. O'Meara is like, hey, we can't contact these people. Actually, there is fields on your application, but yet the county actually allows those to be blank. Y'all need to enforce that stuff so you can contact them. The problem, as we've all agreed upon, is trash and neglected problems and code violations. Now, my daddy told me never to sit there and complain about something unless you got a better solution. So the other piece of paper you have there is actually a one-page bill, not in its official format, but as best as I could do as a layman, to basically affect outstanding fines, trash, and non-compliance properties. It doesn't have any of the other wording, and it's a simple three bullet point issue. The landlords are trying, this bill is geared basically for the social and criminal issues, which should be addressed in other means. Landlords should not be the spearhead for this. We're not the spearhead for those kind of issues, so don't try to use us as basically your sledgehammer to fix a little minor problem. Go after the people and rewrite it. Now, each time I hear Mr. O'Meara say, well, we've rewritten it. The substitute bill basically is one sentence there. Take this pig, kill it, and bring back and get a racehorse. We're willing to help you with that racehorse. Get a working committee on board. I'm more than happy to participate in that, but let us come up with something that actually will correct the problem. Thank you.
Final speaker is Jim Heffernan.
My name is Jim Heffernan. I am a St. Louis County resident in District 3. And you've heard 20-plus people speak tonight, and you don't need me to come up here and say I did all that, even though I do. I have a total concur with everything you've heard. What I do want to point out is that we've taken some time to look at one of the particular areas that are a problem. Glasgow Village has come up numerous times at this council. And one of the issues at Glasgow, so Jerry Hopping and myself, we went through and made a list of the top 60 problem properties in Glasgow Village. There are 60 properties, 56 of which are vacant. 56 vacant properties that are, guess what, 100% on your tax liens, on your tax rules. So these are properties that we're saying, you know what, we don't know who the fuck these are, who owns them. Well, technically, you guys own the lien on them. And they don't sell because the value of that tax lien is in excess of the property value. The houses have been gone through, there's no copper, all of that's been stolen, all the HVAC equipment's stolen out of the units, all the windows are broken, but the bones of the house are really in good shape. And an investor like myself is very interested in taking that house, refurbing it, and putting it back into the tax rolls. So the problem relates for the fact that these houses sit on the post-third tax sale and no one does anything with them because they have too much tax on them. There is over $1 million, $1,031,000 worth of tax money owed on these 56 houses. It's absurd to think that you're going to get that money. You might as well make it $50 million because you're not going to get it either. So I recommend that we get together, we have a group, and that we put these houses up on a no reserve auction, and let's sell them. Let's sell the liens. By the time we get a hold of them and we pay for the $5,000 plus to get the lawyers to clean up the title, and we pay to put the air conditioning and heating back in them and the plumbing and all that, we'll have a nice house that we can rent and we can bring the property values up. We're really all on the same page. We're not sitting here saying, you know what, it's us and them. That's the way that bill reads. That bill reads as if everybody in this room, the landlord is the problem and he's the solution. If we put some draconian rules on him, he'll solve the problem. That's not really the solution. Let's get together, form a committee, we'll work together to solve this. I'll be happy to be on the committee. You call me, I'll come running. I'll be happy to be part of this committee. We can solve this problem, we just need to do it together and not with this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
That will conclude the public forum. We'll move to introduction of bills.
Bill number 232, introduced by Councilmember Wassinger, an ordinance amending ordinance number 9004 is amended by repealing and reenacting Section 2 pertaining to PC 162-78, Willis C. Gross Jr., M.D. Bill number 233, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary, an ordinance amending ordinance number 24,151 is amended by repealing and reenacting Section 3 pertaining to PC 12-09, Caribus Investments, LLC. Bill number 234, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary, an ordinance amending ordinance number 26,086 by repealing and reenacting Section 2 pertaining to PC 05-15, Mid-America Hotels Corporation. Mr. Chair, that's all the bills.
Thank you. Perfection of bills.
Bill number 8, introduced by Councilmember O'Meara.
Please hold.
Bill number 226, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
I move to perfect bill number 226.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 226 is perfected.
Bill number 227, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
Okay. I move to perfect bill number 227.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 227 is perfected.
Bill number 228, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
I move to perfect bill number 228.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 228 is perfected.
Bill number 229, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary.
I move to perfect bill number 229.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 229 is perfected.
Bill number 230, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary.
I move to perfect bill number 230.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 230 is perfected.
Bill number 231, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary.
I move to perfect bill number 231.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 231 is perfected. Final passage of bills.
Bill number 52, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
Please hold, and that will be the order.
Bill number 116, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
Please hold, and that will be the order.
Substitute Bill number 1 for Bill number 204, introduced by Councilmember O'Meara.
Please hold, and that will be the order.
Substitute Bill number 1 for Bill number 211, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
Please drop from the order of business, and that will be the order.
Bill number 219, introduced by Councilmember O'Meara.
Please hold, and that will be the order.
Bill number 221, introduced by Councilmember Dolan.
I move for final passage of bill number 221.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page? Aye. Councilmember Wassinger? Aye. Councilmember O'Meara? Councilmember Dolan?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder. Mr. Chair, on bill number 221, there are 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Bill number 221 is finally passed.
Bill number 222, introduced by Councilmember Page.
I move for final passage of bill number 222.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Wassinger? Aye. Councilmember O'Meara? Councilmember Dolan?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder. Mr. Chair, on bill number 222, there are 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Bill number 222 is finally passed.
Bill number 223, introduced by Councilmember Page.
I move for final passage of bill number 223.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Wassinger? Aye. Councilmember O'Meara? Councilmember Dolan?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder. Mr. Chair, on bill number 223, there are 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Bill number 223 is finally passed.
Bill number 224, introduced by Councilmember Page.
I move for final passage of bill number 224.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Wassinger? Aye. Councilmember O'Meara? Councilmember Dolan?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Leary? Councilmember Harder. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember O'Leary.
Aye.
Excuse me. Councilmember Harder. Mr. Chair, on bill number 224, there are 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Bill number 224 is finally passed.
Bill number 225, introduced by Councilmember O'Leary.
I move for final passage of bill 225.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Wassinger? Aye. Councilmember O'Meara? Councilmember Dolan?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder. Mr. Chair, on Bill number 225, there are 5 ayes and 2 absent.
Bill number 225 is finally passed.
We have no resolutions this evening, Mr. Chair, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Under unfinished business, item number 1, 6th District.
Hold on that order.
So ordered.
And moving on to new business, Mr. Chair, we have 2 prepared orders this evening.
I move for adoption of orders 1 and 2.
All- All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Orders 1 and 2 are adopted.
I move for adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.